Talking about managers and the opportunity to go and then impact a football club, we've seen, haven't we, the brilliant impact that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has had at Manchester United. And a lot of the talk has been about the sort of spirit of '99 coming back into Manchester United. And it got us thinking about this tweet that we saw from Sammy, who works for the Daily Mail. Sammy Mockbell, he says, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and the spirit of '99 as Manchester United firing again. So why aren't Arsenal tapping into the Invincibles? Why are you sitting here with us and not spending time? Not that I don't want you to be sitting here with us, but wouldn't you love, along with quite a few of the other players, to be at the training ground imparting the knowledge you got from having an invincible season onto those current
It doesn't
players?
matter what I would like to do. What matters is that Arsenal are 12 points better off this season than they were this time last year. So the new manager, Emery, is making a difference. There's no doubt about that. I think you can look at Manchester United and they're looking back, aren't they, to the past and using it as a springboard for the future. And I think it's almost the last time they can do it. Sir Alex Ferguson looks as if he's had an influence. Solskjaer's come in. He understands the DNA of the club, how to behave, how to react, and how to be. He's been a serial winner as a player. He's now bringing that into the players, and you can see how that's taken off. If maybe this time last year, maybe before they made this appointment, maybe the likes of Vieira would have, having looked at the successes of Solskjaer, they might have looked at it and thought, okay, that's the sort of appointment Arsenal would like to have made. But you can't doubt the credentials of this manager.
No, but it's not about that, Martin, is it? I mean, you look at Bayern Munich, with all the ex-players that they have in there, Atletico Madrid with Simeone, with Juventus, and Nedved is in there. There's so many football clubs that do a great job of getting these ex-players involved, because they're the heartbeat. And Martin is more Arsenal than virtually as anyone. So it's not so much about his job, it's about how come there are more situations like Ole Gunnar where they can help improve their team.
I think, look, nobody knew Arsene Wenger didn't know he was going to be there for 22 years, but for me, they never felt like a succession plan management from Arsene Wenger. He was interested in...
But wasn't Arsene interested in getting those?
I think he was interested
back
in the here and now. I don't think he was looking for 22 years away when he first went in there. I don't know if there was any... Of course, there was the likes of Steve Bold and Steve Morrow, and in latter years, it seemed they were more collective. They were thinking more about Mertesacker, who took the youth team. He's head of the youth department. But for my generation, it didn't seem that maybe we're too close in age to the manager. It didn't seem that he was planning to involve any of us for the future. I did work there in 2006. We got to the Champions League final, incredible experience. Really enjoyed that, but couldn't really find a way. He wanted me to stay, but we couldn't find a role for me properly to stay at the football club. And that was
what role would you have been after?
Well, whatever he wanted. There was no clear plan for me.
Right.
So I felt the great leaders have a plan for other people that they might see something of talent in. No, that wasn't seen to be the case. So
what would you have liked to kind of been a defensive coach or something?
Well, I worked there free of charge for the whole year. I would have been happy to continue to do that, but I was a motivator and I wanted to be a member of staff. It was difficult. It's difficult to stay in that role for too long when you've worked with players, and then suddenly you're then coaching them or helping them. It becomes like you're now one of the staff and you can't really be in the dressing room. So that was I stayed for 1 year, and Arsene Wenger is a remarkable person to work with, incredibly intelligent. It's frustrating because he can see everything before you can, and it seemed that there was something holding him back at times from making the obvious decisions. But he trusts people. He gives a pathway to certain players. He's always looking to youth, and then maybe wouldn't have necessarily made adjustments to the squad because he wanted a pathway for the young players, and you can't really go against that. He had the best interests of the clubs at heart, and it didn't evolve. They didn't go on and win the trophies that I thought they might have done from 2004 onwards.
I just don't think that it's sensible to lose all this information. When a player retires and they've been at a club for 15 years and they've won numerous titles and they've become one of the Invincibles, there is so much to tap into from those players. Mistakes as much as their brilliance. It's the mistakes that's the really interesting thing to learn from.
I mean, they're building something here at City now, and we look at Vincent Kompany as a special individual now. To learn from the Arsenal situation, they have to find a job for him. He has to have a role.
Well, Arteta's already on the staff, isn't he? As an assistant manager, which is great.
Well, but you've got Vincent Kompany, find a pathway.
Definitely, yeah.
He's going to be.
They will.
It's not rocket science. Now, Patrick Vieira had that player at Arsenal, and there was no real role created for him. You could say the same perhaps about Henry. You could say the same about Bergkamp. Great student of the game, great technician, could pass all that on to the next generation. You come through a club And there's no doubt about it. I mean, there was the aura that some of these players had. If you came in every day to look at, they were winners. The way they held themselves, and to think that none of those people were actually working at the club, I think was a mistake. But that's gone now. But maybe to a certain extent, you suffer in the future. And if you look at the Manchester United model, they are now jumping back to that. And maybe it's the last opportunity for them to do that.
Well, look at Ajax. Ajax are doing a brilliant job of incorporating all those ex-players. Van der Sar is the CEO, and Overmars and Bergkamp, all those guys. Bayern Munich still do with Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Beckenbauer and Hoeneß. So there are success stories out there. I just think it could be more.
I went to Ajax. It was laughable. Honestly, everywhere I looked, there was a former player. and even the groundsman, I had to ask him, was he a European Cup winner?
But the thing is,
it was like I half expected to.
What's interesting is, what we do over here, though, we go, oh yeah, they won the league, great. Maybe they can host a lounge. We don't say, great, they won the league, let's make them the CEO of the club, like Ajax have done with Van der Sar. You know, people can fulfil proper roles at football clubs. And I just, I'm imagining that Manchester United don't ever pick up the phone to you and say, look, you did so well in your time here, come and talk to some of the younger players about scoring a penalty in a Champions League final. Oh, you're an invincible. Come in and speak to the current crop of players about.
There are hundreds of players, though, aren't they? And I always feel that players are almost a problem for clubs. Former players can create an issue. A lot of us go and work in the media, but there are one or two that you have to identify and bring them in. And I don't understand why. If you look at Van der Sar, he was the CEO. He did a shadow role with the former CEO, learning the ropes, understanding the job very well. And with that football approach he has, and he's an intelligent man, he's demonstrating that their roles can be filled by former players. I don't understand why former players are not really within the boardrooms, why there aren't roles made available for these players, because they have an understanding of how the end goal of what the players want, and I think they can gather that respect. Why can't they challenge some of these young business people that want to go into these high-powered jobs?
I still think that is exactly what it's about, though. I think that we don't look at young or ex-young players, retired players, and think he could do a proper job at this football club. I don't think that we think of footballers like that. Do you know what I mean? We don't give them the respect of they could run a business.
But I think it's about knowing and understanding career paths when you stop. And sometimes that these players that don't have a journey, a pathway created for them. And it's all you need to do is, Van der Sar was a perfect example, just shadow a CEO. Now he does a fantastic job. Look at Ajax, the way that they're playing in the Champions League. Youngsters, they've kept together, a group that will eventually break up, but because I think Van der Sar and Overmars are there, understand the values of the club, they've kept them there a little bit longer, and they may have their best ever season this year.
How would players react, do you think? Current players to ex-players coming in and trying to tell them what to do?
As long as the information is good, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think it depends on how they actually come across and what their aim is to do. Because I think from a young player's point of view, I think, say the likes of Vincent Kompany, if he comes into the under-14 boys, I think they'll just be absolutely mesmerised by him, and whatever he's saying, it's obviously positive. And I think there is definitely a place for players going in and transition into football clubs if that's what they want to do.
I think we do it with current players. We go and speak to the youth team players, go and speak to the under-23s. But as soon as they're retired, it's almost like, oh, okay, so the game's moved on. I think it's a strange situation.
Well, it's up to the clubs to take that responsibility, isn't it? And to create proper roles and proper jobs. It's not jobs for the boys, it's for people who are actually going to offer something going forward. And it's they understand the values of the football club and keeps those values there for as long as possible.
Yeah.